Hey everybody, I hope everybody's well. Today on the channel we are going to take a look at the new album by Big Big Train called Woodcut. Woodcut is Big Big Train's 16th studio album, which was released February 6, 2026, and it stands out because it's the band's first full concept album. The record marks a major creative milestone for the group, which is known for its narrative-rich progressive rock. First impression. Well, I gotta start off by saying that after the first couple of listens, I can only say that this is going to be a masterpiece that is unfolding between my eyes, or my ears, I guess in that case. You come across albums that reveal themselves very slowly to you. And then there are albums like this Woodcut that from the moment you hear the first note, you're automatically transported to a different world, a different time. You go through a door to a world that already exists, with the story, with the craft and everything in it. And to me, what ultimately sells Woodcut as a first listen masterpiece is its emotional weight. The darkness of the edges of beauty are more deeply here than ever before, and this really resonates immediately with the listener as well as myself. There are definitely moments of melancholy, of wonder, of creative paralysis and breakthrough, and the band expresses all of it without melodrama. It's beauty, but beauty with scars. Now, despite the album being just over an hour, nothing drags about it. It's immersive in the way that it draws you inward rather than wearing you down. You want to listen to it on repeated listens, and like I said earlier, it's kind of like you go into this whole other world and you want to explore it. Vocals and lyrics. I'm going to refer to this album a couple of times as a 7-voice tapestry. One of the first universal points that came across early in my listening experiences was the vocal sophistication of Woodcut. Frontman Alberto Bravin emerges as the album's vocal anchor, carrying much of the emotional weight with an artful tenor that bridges intimacy and grandeur. But the album has a bit of a surprise and a bit of a secret weapon, so to speak. The album is intentionally communal. We have violinist Claire Lindley, multi-instrumentist Ricard Solborn. I'm sorry, Ricard, I know I probably screwed that up. And the others signed in the spotlight for key narrative moments. And these vocals aren't just decorative, they serve the narrative, switching voices to reflect different internal states, alternate realities, or emotional pivot points within the artist's journey. The lyrics to me are a true conceptual masterwork. A narrative builds on contrast, both negative and positive, creation, destruction, clarity, and madness. There's always a yin and yang, a true and a false to everything about these lyrics. The album is not simply a story. It is constructed like a woodcut itself, built on the interplay of negative and positive space, light and dark, good and bad. The lyrical approach is earnest but literary, rich in metaphors, grounded in tactile imagery, and always in service of the story's psychological progression. Musicianship. Production clearly enhances the vocal and lyrical detail. The album has crystal clean production, which allows dense arrangements to feel like a forest of sound, with all instruments and voices remain distinct. The instruments are also used as narrative punctuation. I would describe the instrumental tracks as being bridges or thematic anchors, which help frame the lyrical chapters, supporting the vocal and narrative arcs rather than interrupting both of them. We have also a dynamic emotional slope. I've noted that the album builds up in intensity song by song, which is an unusual feat across 66 minutes and something I think is pretty hard to do. Risk-taking in tone and subject. The project confronts darkness, doubt, artistic collapse more directly than any Big Big Train record has since the David Longdon era. This album has a mature balance of accessibility and complexity. This album also, I would say, would work without the full storyline engagement as well. It is just that good. Where the album stumbles. I honestly can't really say that this album stumbles, and if it does, it's very slight. A couple of things come to my mind. Maybe it's the sheer density, which can feel intimidating to listeners that are more preference of having a concise album instead of 16 tracks that have a lot of intricacies and a narrative which demands your attention. And maybe some listeners that are more used to Big Train for their extended pieces and realize that there's none on this album, maybe that is kind of a stumbling block for them. To me, those both are irrelevant. I think this album is definitely a masterpiece, as I'm going to probably say a few more times. And the big thing also where I think this album kind of stumbles a bit is it's maybe a little bit too ambitious for your casual listener. Even though it does have glowing production values and interconnected themes, maybe they would start feeling that some of these tracks may feel less essential. I don't know. It's a really hard one to describe because for myself, I've loved everything that Big Train has done, from their narrative stuff to the longer extended pieces. So this is kind of a thing. I don't think this album stumbles, and it doesn't to me anyways. I've kind of blabbled on a little bit too long about it, but take it from me, if you listen to this album and you eventually break into it and it reveals itself to you, you will thank me and you will thank Big Train. Where the album shines. I'm going to say that this album, Woodcut, is a rich, cohesive, emotionally, and resonant masterwork. And there's a few things that really kind of pop out to me about what really makes this album special. And the first one is being the fully realized concept with a narrative story. There are a couple of things that really stand out and make this album shine to me. And the first one is that it is a fully realized concept with narrative grace. One of the album's most celebrated strengths is its conceptual execution. Although this is Big Train's first true concept album, reviewers note, and myself, how naturally the band takes to it. The balancing act between coherency without rigidity is one of Woodcut's most impressive achievements. Secondly, the dazzling arrangements, impeccable production, and again, like I said, that forest of sound kind of a mix is one of the most universally praised elements of this production quality. The production allows every instrument, string ensemble, brass, woodwinds, and the band's own trademark pastoral progression to shine individually while still blending organically, which I think today a lot of prog music especially is sort of coming around, 360, and we're getting back to more of a very organic feel of the music. I think for a long time, music has felt, not just in prog, but in general, just very cold and not organic at all. It's maybe a better way of saying it is analog versus digital. I think we're coming back to more of a true analog feeling. Another thing that really makes this album shines is the shared vocal responsibility. This creates not just musical richness, but emotional communal energy, something few prog rock bands achieve today. And finally, the last point that really makes this album shine is the emotional depth rooted in this real-world loss and renewal of this story. Woodcut shines for reasons that go beyond technicality or storytelling. The album is dedicated to David Longdon and reflects the band's recovery and rebirth after his untimely passing, lending emotional weight to the project. The context gives the music an added poignancy, making the triumphs feel earned and its moments of beauty more resonant. Final thoughts. After more than 30 years and 15 albums, critics consistently note that Big Train has finally delivered a true concept album and somehow made it feel like the culmination of everything that they were building towards. Woodcut is Big Train's long-form masterpiece, cohesive, emotionally rich, musically dazzling concept album that distills everything that the band does best in a single hour of inspired progressive rock storytelling. In its culmination, this is a rebirth and a confident artistic declaration all at once. If you've been a fan of Big Big Train for the last years, this is the album where all the tracks finally converge. And if you're new to the group, this is where to embark. And of course, like you probably understand, I don't know my light is doing that. This album is a masterpiece and should be part of everybody's not only progressive rock, but just music library. It is that good that it should be included. All right, because I do have the CD here, I'm going to show you it. And there's the front, and there's the hype sticker there. And there's the back. I apologize for the glare. I don't know how that's going to show up. That's the CD inner tray. And that's the CD looks like. And there's the front of the CD booklet. And we have track listing and members of the band. Some credits and some lyrics. Lyrics. I think the artwork on this album is it's very what's the word? Very inspired. I mean, it's very plain and basic, but that sometimes is all you need, and it speaks to a wider mind of the possibilities of what you can do with art. Yeah. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this album as much as I did. It's a ride. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Good night.